So today I want to talk about why people choose to do certain jobs. So I'm using the example today as I volunteer as a referee for Colts level football, so anything kind of under 16s. And sometimes I really question why I've chosen to do this. I'm sure you can kind of resonate with several jobs out there, but keep on watching, keep on listening, and find out more. Welcome back to consecutive day 1699 of a diary of a Runpreneur. Today's topic is all about why do we choose to do the jobs that we don't have to do, that causes us nothing but hassle. But before we get to the topic at hand, please remember that this is part of a fundraiser to save the lives of children by attempting the ultimate ultra marathon of run vlogging on consecutive days, distance of lap of the world, barefoot style. More people we get in front of, more money we raise, more children's lives we save, which is why I do it every day. So your support is much appreciated. So back to the topic at hand. Why do people do jobs that they have a choice whether to do them or not, where there's very little upside? So the example, I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of examples you could kind of give. I'm referring to today the example of refereeing Colts football. So Colts, I believe, runs from maybe 12 to 16 before age group. Before that, you're kind of in the mini leagues, which is the younger children. That's in the kind of UK grassroots footballing system. And I've been a coach or an assistant coach for my eldest son's team since he started playing at 6, and they're now 14. So kind of 8 years plus at doing this now, which is just got a car coming past me. Just bear with me a second so I can get. And yeah, ultimately, it's I've been doing it a long time, and I've enjoyed seeing the boys grow, develop, and all that side of things. As a kind of a knock-on from that, you end up not just being kind of an assistant coach, but you end up doing lots of other jobs associated with running a football team. Could be, you know, picking up cones, carrying the balls, putting the corner flag, you know, setting up the pitches, all these types of things, running the line in certain instances for games when they get to a certain age. But one of the key roles that I ended up taking up was refereeing. Now, I quite enjoy refereeing, and the reason I kind of chose to do it, well, bear in mind I chose to do this many years ago when the kids were really young, and the football was all about happiness and enjoyment. And that does unfortunately change as they get a bit older, but we'll come on to that in just a second. So I've obviously refed and the reason I chose to ref is because I'm quite a competitive individual, and I've always liked to win. I like to do everything within my power to win, and I struggle to watch when it's kind of outside my control, especially with my children, because you want them ultimately to do the best they can do. And it's not about winning. I've never really minded about them winning or not. I've just wanted them to have a good account of themselves, contribute, be the best versions of themselves. And sometimes it's quite difficult to watch at times, depending on how things are going. So my answer to that was quite simply, well, if I have a role to fulfill in any game, whether it's, you know, in home matches I'll referee, when we play away matches I'll run the line. It gives me a focus to do the best job I can to ensure that I fulfill my duty as one of the match officials. And it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure away of me fixated upon how my kids are doing. It's a bit weird, I know, but I am a bit weird. So that's kind of my kind of justification. Anyway, and I've refed for a long time now, so I'm fairly experienced in kind of children's football, in refereeing duties, right the way from kind of, like I said, under 6s right the way through to under 14s. And under 14s, to put it in perspective, in boys particularly, some of them are fully grown men, but with a boy's brain. so they're quite big, intimidating characters. Whereas when you start doing it and you're on a tiny pitch with, 5, 6-year-old kids, it's a very, very different kind of experience than under 14s when you've got fully grown men going in for big tackles with one another, and the kind of the power that they strike the ball with, all this type of things is very different. And the size of the pitch, obviously they're able to play on a full-size pitch. Under 14s have the flexibility of a it's almost like slightly bigger than a 3/4 length pitch up to a full-size pitch. They have the kind of flexibility. So yeah, they're getting bigger and bigger. And the point I'm making about today's episode is that I often find myself almost every week now when I've refereed, why do I do it? It's nothing but hassle. Okay, it is a very important part. If you don't have a referee, you don't have a game of football, and you don't have, ultimately, what everybody really wants is a game of football to be played in the right spirit, in the right way, and everybody comes off happy. But invariably, that never often happens. And I suppose it's more of a drag now because I've got three kids, an under 14 boy, an under 12 girl, and an under 10 boy. Now, you'd think the under 10s would be nice and chilled, but because the under 10s team have always been quite elite, they've always been in the kind of top division, so they always play the other elite under 10s teams, and it's almost like being under 13s in terms of how involved all the parents and everybody associated with the club gets involved, the coaches, the parents, and it creates this kind of, I wouldn't say, it's difficult. I would argue that it's a toxic environment for the children to be within, because all the games for children in particular are fairly well supported, and it creates this intense pressure cooker where the kids are feeling the pressure, the referees, the officials feel the pressure, coaches feel the pressure, because there's so much expectation resting on the result of a kid's football match. And that's what frustrates me. For me, children's football is about enjoying it, getting away from screens, getting out, getting active, doing something for fitness, enjoyment, everybody to have a nice time, social. That's what I kind of associate with it. But far too many people take it way too seriously. And it's almost every refereeing experience I have. And I like to think that I'm a pretty good referee. I get a lot of good comments from a lot of people who watch. I'm very fair. I don't care whether I'm associated with the home team. I'll call it as I see it in the most fairest possible way, because for me, to win by cheating is just not an option. It's never been who I am, what I stand for, and I wouldn't want any club I'm associated with to be kind of tarnished with that kind of value, if you like, as there are a lot of officials that do actually cheat, and they'd be so blatant that they do, because it's not policed or anything, and it's fairly easy to get away with it when you're the home side. You can kind of make calls that are kind of up for debate and get away with them, because ultimately you're officiating the game. But that's not my style. And today's example is it was a 4-3 game. Our team, Willingham, lost for 3-4, if you like, if that's how you pronounce the score. So 3 was the home team, Willingham at home, and Histon was the away team, who won 4-3. Now, there's no way Willingham should have lost that game. They were by far the kind of superior team, but they just let in some very soft goals and gave away a silly penalty. Obviously, when you're the referee and you give a penalty away against the team that you're associated with, obviously the home supporters get irate with you. But I call it as I see it. For me, it was a pretty clear penalty. For other people, it wasn't. But that's always, every decision is going to be scrutinised and up for debate. And that's kind of ultimately where I'm going with this. Every game is just a pressure cooker environment of grief as the referee. Will I stop doing it? No. I'll keep doing it, because you need good referees, and without referees, games can't continue. And if you have a weak referee or a referee that doesn't control the game, injuries can happen, kids can get hurt, and games can be played in the wrong way. Because I will also call up the boys or girls up when they, evidence any form of gamesmanship or lack of sportsmanship, or because they need to be learning, they need to be taught and educated as part of growing up. But yeah, I suppose the learnings from my diary is why do people do the jobs that no one really wants to do, especially when they've got a choice whether to do them. So I'm talking about an example here of refereeing children's football, Colts in particular, kind of approaching teenage years, and also kind of the younger kids from kind of 10 you know, 10ish and above. And it's one of those jobs that you're a volunteer, so you get nothing for doing it other than hoping that everybody enjoys the football, and everybody, you know, the parents get to watch a good game, the kids enjoy it, you know, everybody associated with the match enjoys it. But unfortunately, we now kind of got to an age where it's so overly competitive, and parents kick off, coaches kick off, players kick off, and it becomes almost like every game you're starting to ref, you're fully aware that it's going to be an unpleasurable experience with you having to deal with, you know, angry people, because every decision you make is going to be, you know, good for one side, not good for the other. And it's almost like we've created this kind of environment in children's football now, certainly, where I think it's lost sight of what children's football should always be. And but back to the topic hand, why do I do it? Well, because it's an essential part of any football match. You have to have a referee, so somebody has to do it. I feel that I'm fairly competent at doing it, and I feel that I'm fairly thick-skinned, so I can kind of take criticism from any side, and I can kind of deal with that, because I try and communicate fairly with everybody. If anybody disputes anything, with exception of the crowd, I won't really communicate with them because they're not involved. But if a coach is really kind of upset with the decision, I'll talk to them. If a player is berating a decision, I pull them to the side, I explain my decision. And I've often found that kind of diffuses the situation to some degree. But especially when you get close games where there's one goal in it, it creates this kind of frenzied environment that emotions can run high. But yeah, in summary, I do it because it's an essential job that needs to be done, and someone has to do it. And if somebody's competent at doing it and they're adding value to the situation, that's having a positive impact overall on many others, then it's worth doing. And that is the instance with football, because after the heat of the moment, I think when people reflect, they're probably quite embarrassed with their actions, but overall, you know, they enjoy the whole football kind of environment, because it's such a big part of so many people's lives. So yeah, that's my views. Any questions or comments, drop me a line. I'll respond to everyone. But do remember, if you believe in my mission of saving the lives of children by attempting the ultimate ultra marathon of run vlogging on consecutive days, distance of a lap of the world, barefoot style, do give this a subscribe, share, like and comment. More people we get in front of, more money we raise, more children's lives we save, which is why I do this every single day. Thank you as always. Stay positive, stay happy. I'll see you again tomorrow.